had resigned and being replaced. Mr. William Spanarelli. He will be greatly missed on here. He was with us for quite a few years. His expertise was very much appreciated, and we know that Kathy is having a hard time with it. That's his wife. So when we stand up tonight, I'm going to lead us in the pledge. When we stand up, I'm going to observe a moment of silence, and then when I start the pledge, I'll ask all of you to fill in with me. Let us stand. I thank you all. I appreciate your understanding. And as we get this meeting started tonight, I will ask that if you have a telephone or electronic device that you either turn it off or make sure it's on vibrate. Now that we've had our call to order and the pledge, I'll ask Sarah for the roll call and determination of quorum.
Mr. Peterman? Absent. Mr. Servan?
Present.
Mrs. Karcher?
Here.
Mr. Galvry?
Here.
Mr. Mills?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Jester?
Here.
So you have 6 present. You do have a quorum.
I thank you very much. In front of you, as I said, you also have your agenda. If there isn't any additions or deletions or change to it, I'd entertain a motion in a second.
So moved.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Once again, Sarah, I call on you to call the vote.
Mr. Servan?
Yes.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes.
Mr. Galvry?
Aye.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
So you have 6 yeas in favor of approving tonight's agenda.
Also in front of you, you have the minutes from January 13th, 2022. Having read them and seeing how short the meeting was, if there isn't any additions or corrections, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
So moved to pass.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Sarah, once again, call the commission.
Mr. Servan?
Yes.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes.
Mr. Galvry?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
So you have 6 yeas in favor of approving the minutes of January 13th.
I thank you once again. Next on your agenda, you'll see the levy court action and with our recommendations. If you have any questions about that, contact staff. Now going right into our business for tonight. First on the business is CS-22-01, private Amish school, request for conditional use with site plan approval of a private education institution located outside the growth zone overlay district. I think we all agree about how good this project is and what needs to be done. There was an issue about trees. Have they submitted anything with you, Sarah, about the trees?
Yeah, they actually submitted by close of business Monday a new plan that actually shows compliance, shows all 28 trees on site.
I certainly appreciate that, and I know how important this school is to them. So at this time, I'll open it up to the commission. Would somebody like to make the motion? Mr. Mills?
I'd like to make a motion, CS-22-01, private Amish school. Motion, I move that the Regional Planning Commission recommend conditional approval of the application CS-22-01, a conditional use site plan for a private educational institution located outside the growth zone overlay district. This is based on Exhibit A. Staff recommendation report dated February 3rd, 2022, Exhibit B. Public hearing testimony dated February 3rd, 2022, and the findings of the facts that A, the subject site is zoned AR, agricultural residential, and 205-64 and 205-327 permit private educational institution as a conditional use. B, the location is appropriate and not in conflict with any comprehensive plan. C, the public health, safety, and general welfare will not be adversely affected. D, the applicant submitted a landscape plan that demonstrates compliance with 187-74D, tree planting requirements in non-woodlands. Pursuant to Chapter 187 and 205 of the Kent County Code and pursuant to 9 Del C 4802 and 4811, the Commission has reviewed the application and the February 3rd, 2022 staff recommendation report. And furthermore, as part of this approval, the applicant shall comply with all staff and agency requirements as described in the February 3rd, 2022 staff recommendation report. A, because the use is not intensive nor in potential conflict with surrounding uses, and the proposed landscape provided as partial buffer, the waiver from 187-79 buffering of non-residential use is granted. B, the on-site septic system shall be sized for maximum occupancy, and a letter of no objection from DENREC is required prior to final site plan approval. C, a letter of no objection from DelDOT is required prior to final site plan approval. If DelDOT approves the shared entrance for this use, an ingress-egress easement agreement must be recorded with the Kent County Office of Recorded Deeds. D, a letter of no objection from Delaware Health and Social Services Division of Public Health Office of Public Drinking Water is required prior to final site plan approval for the on-site well.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Sarah, call the commission.
Mr. Servon,
Yes to approve.
Mrs. Karcher,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Galvry,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Mills,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Davis,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Jester.
Yes, for all reasons, and to approve.
So you have 6 yeas in favor of recommending conditional approval of application CS 2201.
I thank you very much for your time and for coming back again tonight. And we all know that the children are the ones that are going to be our future. So good luck with your project. Next under new business is CDCZ-22-01, LC-22-01, Carson Development, LLC, request to amend the zoning map from AR, Agricultural Residential, Low Density Residential, to BG, General Business, Highway Commercial, located inside the Growth Zone Overlay District. They give a great presentation, so I'll now open it up to the commission. Would someone like to make a motion? Okay, Ms. Karcher, go ahead.
I move that the Regional Planning Commission recommend approval of ordinance LC 22-01 to amend the zoning map from AR, Agricultural Residential, Low Density Residential, to BG, General Business Highway Commercial, located inside the Growth Zone Overlay District. And this is based on the staff recommendation report dated February 3, 2022, the public hearing testimony dated February 3, 2022, and the findings of fact that the character of the neighborhood is predominantly a mixture of highway commercial, high-density residential, and low-density residential. B, that the proposed BG zoning would be compatible with the surrounding area. C, the approval of this request would eliminate the split zoning of the parcel and create a large enough area of BG to more feasibly and economically develop given existing site constraints. D, that the use of the land use strategy map of the 7-C of the 2018 Kent County Comprehensive Plan indicates that the subject site be utilized for low-density residential purposes. However, the land use chapter of the comprehensive plan provides that compatibility with surrounding land uses and availability of infrastructure should have equal weight on evaluating rezoning applications. And E, infrastructure is in place to serve future development of the site.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Sarah, please call the commission.
Mr. Servon,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Servon, was that a yes?
Yes to approve.
Thank you. Mrs. Karcher,
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Galvery,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Mills,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Davis,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Jester.
Yes to approve.
So you have 6 yeas in favor of recommending approval of ordinance LC 2201.
I thank you very much, and good luck with your project. Next tonight, we have SL-11-01, Nobles Pond Phases 3A and 4A, request for revisions to Phase 3A and 4A of the major subdivision plan located inside the growth zone overlay district. I've had some questions from commissioners tonight, so I'm going to call, is there somebody here tonight representing this project? Please come to the mic. You can either be sworn or affirmed, and give your name and address.
Okay. Justin O'Lear. I represent Nobles, the Nobles Pond Project, 13 Nobles Pond Crossing, Dover, Delaware, 19904.
Sir, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think before you get into your presentation, we had some questions, and then maybe you can elaborate, because you've got quite an extensive report here dealing with the foundations. And I remember when it came before us before, there was quite a few questions.
Yes.
So right now, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Karcher. She has some questions about the project.
Okay.
I was here from the beginning of the first part of the project. I mean, our concerns back then, and I guess for me, continue to be, the water problem, the drainage problem. I'm very uncomfortable with the thought of any basements. I'm very uncomfortable with someone older than me buying one of these houses and having these water problems. I think I would like an explanation, quickly, but an explanation of how there is some type of I don't want to say guarantee, but as close as you can get to a guarantee,
Sure.
that something different has happened in the building of these houses.
Sure. So just
You're allowed to take your mask off at the mic if you like, and pull the mic up so we can understand you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So just an overall, I know most of you are familiar with the project. It's 4 phases, 880 homes. I've been with the project for 9 years now. We've successfully completed phase 1 of the project, 210 homes, and we have just about completed all of phase 2 of the project, which is another 213 homes. Actually, it's 197 now. In phase 2, for the past 3.5 years, we've been successfully installing basements. So when I got to phase 3, as we're starting phase 3 now, or about to start phase 3, my engineer alerted me there is a contingency comment in the record plan for 3 and 4 that is not in your phase 2. I was not aware of it. So that is why part of my reason why I'm here tonight, and the other 2 requests I'm making this evening as well. But quickly, as I want to explain, as I build every home in this subdivision, I get a geotechnical report done on every home, regardless basement or not, for compaction, for soil conditions and drainage. We usually do a condition crawl space. You can do slab on grade as well. But we follow, if there are recommendations beyond what we typically do for a home install of a foundation, we follow that GTA report to ensure we have quality, we don't have any structural issues, we don't have any issues on the inside of the home with any water or anything like that. We've been successfully doing this now with no issue in phase 2. You know, I think my method with my geotechnical reports on every house. Now, if a homeowner or a client wants to build a basement, as they have been asking to do in phase 2, we first go out and do a test pit with a geotechnical expert on site when we do the test pit. At that point, they make a recommendation whether yes or no, it's not feasible to do a basement on every lot. We do that per lot. Tonight, the report you see in front of you, I went ahead and just sent my geotechnical experts out across phases 3 and 4 to show you throughout those phases the feasibility of basements in those phases, because we really didn't have updated information for you to make an educated decision this evening. So I felt it was worth me spending the money to do so. It's a lot of information, and Megan is here obviously to answer more technical questions as well. But that is my process of what I've been following so far.
My first question, I have a question for you too, but my first question is to staff. I did not know that there were basements in phase 2. Did I not know this?
Phase 2 is not in the county's jurisdiction any longer. It got annexed into Cheswold.
But regardless, the comment was never removed when it was annexed. It just was not there in phase 2. So it was added in 3 and 4, which are in the county still. They are not in the town of Cheswold.
So what's the impact when you add this many more houses onto this piece of land? So you've disturbed that much more of the soil. Doesn't that actually increase the chance for water issues?
That might be a Megan question. I'll let you answer that question.
Before you step down, sir, I do have one question.
Absolutely.
And then we'll get her up to the mic.
Absolutely.
I know construction phases that you have been through so far, you have done some basements.
Yes, about
And there
20%.
has there been any documented problems with the construction that you so far have made? And has
No.
there been any water problems in those basements?
No, nope. And every house we do 2 sump pumps, battery backup sump pumps as well. And again, we follow the GTA, our geotechnical report, making recommendations for if there needs to be added stone around the foundation. We do interior and exterior drains around every foundation at Nobles Pond.
So are the basements like part the way out of the ground, so they're not in as deep as a normal basement?
No, they have the option to do 8 or 9 foot ceilings in those basements as well. So you would see an egress window or just the little transom windows across the top.
Does any other commissioners have any questions for this individual? Is anybody on the phone, Mark?
I
Have
do.
any questions for him?
I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Davis.
I guess the question I have is to ask, even though this other section has been developed and you claim there's no problems, and you had a study done on each one of those properties, why didn't you submit that information to this plan so we could take a review of it?
I can certainly do that for every permit we've pulled in phase 2.
I didn't ask you that, so why didn't you do it to begin with?
Geotechnical reports were done when the project started in 2008, but again, that was dated information, and I know the county has concerns about water table levels, drainage, so I went ahead and sent GTA back out to gather updated information off of the site as it stands today. It was just done at the end of December.
As I read the report, I mean, I'm not an expert in that area, but as I read the report myself, it appears to me that GTA that did this study for you was started out with saying this is a limited survey, and there's several comments made there that would lead me to believe that there has to be more work done, and it wasn't a complete, I guess, a complete survey on this whole issue of water. And as you know, that area has been a major problem, and I really have major concerns about that. So
I'm happy to have.
just was curious as to why you didn't get that information and at least put it in our package so we could study that to confirm what you're saying.
I'm happy to have Megan answer any questions about her report. She's here this evening too to answer any detailed questions about it.
Commissioner Davis, we'll let the other lady come up to the mic and give her name and her address and have her sworn in, and then you can ask her the same questions. Ma'am, would you come up to the mic?
Good evening. Megan McDonough, 18 Bolden Circle, Suite 36, Newcastle, Delaware, 19720. That's my business address.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Young lady, did you understand the question, or would you like Mr. Davis to repeat it?
I don't understand the question.
Mr. Davis, can you kind of brief the question once again? We have a new person at the mic.
Sure. I read your report, and a couple of things kind of got my attention. On the opening statement, the comment was made that this was basically a limited survey or study, whichever you call it, on this proposed development. And secondly, as I read through the on page 10, there's a couple of things that's very concerning to me. It says the analysts and recommendations contained in this report are based on the data obtained from limited observational testing of the encountered materials. That kind of concerns me a little bit. And then if you go down on the bottom of page 10, it addresses several areas of concern. The scope of a service for this geological exploration did not include any environmental assessment or investigation for the presence or absence of wetlands or hazardous or toxic materials, surface water, groundwater, or air or below and around the site. Any statements in this report are on the logs regarding odors or unusual, suspicious items, so forth, so on. It tells me that this was a very, very limited study, and I'm very concerned about that.
Okay, I appreciate.
Maybe you can answer my question.
Yes, thank you. So to clarify the first statement in the introduction of a report, as Justin had stated, there's more than one phase in the project. So it's meant to differentiate the other phases. So it was the word limited geotechnical exploration spells it out that it's strictly for phases 3A and 4A. And the information and the data shouldn't be extrapolated out to any other areas of the site. So didn't mean to cause concern or confusion. Again, we did 61 test pits, which is a fairly extensive study for a basement feasibility study. Usually they're less test pits in a feasibility scope, but as Justin had pointed out earlier, when we had evaluate the basements in the other phases, we do a lot-specific test pit as well. So this was to evaluate overall feasibility. The one thing I'd like to point out to you is that we did identify, based off the current grading, that there are a few lots where basements wouldn't be feasible without some other engineering redesign or other controls put in. And so I don't want to, so that goes to the overall feasibility. So if basements were to be evaluated on some of those lots that were identified, additional work would have to be done on those. But again, we're looking to do lot-specific test pits if the basements are approved to move forward. With regards to the statements on... I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. So with regards to the statements on page 10, again, there is a difference between a geotechnical evaluation and environmental hazards and a phase 1 environmental site assessment. This is to clarify that the purpose of our study was to evaluate the engineering properties with regards to soil and groundwater. Obviously, if we encounter something that's of concern, we would alert our client, but that was not what we were scoped to identify. So it's more legalese with my client to differentiate, the purpose of our scope, reiterating our scope. And then to your specific question about the explorations and in general, this is a general statement, not specific to this particular report or site. In addition to doing test pits, we have other methods of evaluation for soil and groundwater. Sometimes that includes standard penetration test borings, cone penetrometers. A test pit is typically 2 to 3 feet wide, 4 to 6 feet long, and it will go to the depth of at least the groundwater table and deeper, depending on the type of excavation equipment that we have. If we're using a mini excavator, that can go 8 to 9 feet. A backhoe can go 12 to 15 feet, and then a track-mounted excavator can go up to 22 feet. So you get the size of the hole. When we do smaller holes to limit the disturbance on a property, then SBT boring is only 8 inches in diameter. So obviously, when you're trying to just clarify in the scope that things that happen between those 2 points, if I didn't do a hole directly there, then we're making an assumption and interpolating to 2 points instead of extrapolating out. So that's the purpose of that. It's not meant to cause concern or confusion with regard to the work that was done. It's simply to clarify if there is a change condition in between 2 holes, if it were come upon during construction, then we were respectfully asked that we be provided the opportunity to evaluate it further, since it's different than what we saw in those particular holes. It's just engineering. I don't want to say jargon, but maybe legalese is the proper term.
Let me ask another question. When did you do this testing? What time or what part of the year? What season was it?
That's where I spent my New Year's Eve. It was just a few weeks ago.
I didn't hear that.
It's where I spent my New Year's Eve. It was just a few weeks ago, so it was in the wet season between November and April.
So, what was the water table when you checked it?
It depends on the location, but generally in phase 3A, I believe we were 3.5 to 10 feet.
I'm talking about 3A only.
I'm sorry?
I'm talking about what you're currently on the agenda for tonight. What was the water table when you checked it a few weeks ago, a few months ago?
In phase 3A,
what was the table?
In phase 3A, it was anywhere between 3.5 to 10 feet. And then in phase 4A, it was anywhere from 6.5 to like 10.5 feet. And the exact depth to water was recorded for each exploration on the logs that are attached to the report. We left the holes open for an extended period of time, mostly through the end of the day, and we record water levels upon completion of the exploration, and then we also record water levels at the end of the day. And the reason why we do that is for a couple reasons. So soil is heavy, it's heavier than water. Typically, when you dig a basement, you'll have some relief of the water pressure due to the overburden being excavated and the soil being taken off that. So we want to measure the relief from the overburden pressure. We also want to make sure that we get a static water level. And then if there are any perched layers, meaning if there are any seams of granular lenses that are sandwiched between some fine-grained soils or maybe some dense soils, we want to pick up those layers so we can add additional recommendations for the builder with regards to damp-proofing, waterproofing, and engineered controls.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Davis?
I personally am not too excited about the I don't know if anyone ever made you aware of it. Maybe they never told you. But the previous ones that were built, there were major issues. And I would have thought that the developer would have really focused on that and bring this thing up to speed. And it's just kind of